Well, welcome everybody. This is part 3 of our classes. And tonight's class is about building your outreach toolkit. And we're going to learn how to build a personalized toolkit to best reach your intended audience. And we talked in the first class about email marketing and how to build email list, and also what to do with the list once you had it. And that is recorded and available to people who want to see it. I believe Lindsay will make it obvious how that is available to people probably after the series is done. And then part 2 of our series was about social media marketing, and we talked about Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and etc. Actually, we didn't talk about YouTube, but we talked about LinkedIn and the other ones that I just mentioned. And for our purposes tonight, I'm going to just really talk about some of the ones that we haven't talked about so far. And I'm going to do a little demoing. So instead of having a slideshow for you, I'm actually just going to start showing you a couple programs that you're probably familiar with, but I'll be showing you some things that you may or may not be familiar with, and talk a little bit about some of the strategy that I use as a neighborhood activist and as a marketer, depending on different things that I'm up to. And hopefully some of these will touch upon areas of work that you do, and maybe you'll find it useful. I'm sure you probably won't find everything useful, but you might find some things useful. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with something that everybody uses from time to time, and that is Nextdoor. Nextdoor came to us kind of out of the blue. I'd say about maybe 7 to 10 years ago. I mean, I could probably actually figure out exactly how long it's been, but it's not really that important. But this is what Nextdoor looks like when you log into it. I will also say that, what I want to mention about this? Well, just a couple fun facts. Nextdoor, the way it's organized is by your neighborhood. So I live in Richmond. Right now, there's 7,400 people who are part of the Richmond neighborhood on Nextdoor. And you can see here that there's 32,000 people who are part of the 12 nearby neighborhoods. If I click on that link, I can go ahead and I can look at what's going on in different neighborhoods. So for instance, if I want to just see the feed of what's going on in Sunnyside, I can click on that word Sunnyside. I can see what the boundaries in Sunnyside are. I can see some of the local businesses, and
Wait.
Yeah.
And how did you get there to that list of neighborhoods?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
No problem. In fact, that's something that the thought that came to my mind a moment ago where I hiccuped was, if you have a question, you're welcome to raise your hand,
Okay.
which is the little button at the bottom
Yes.
on Zoom.
Sorry.
And then when there's a good moment, I'll invite you in, or you're welcome to just talk over me too. That's just
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's really fine. It's really fine. Okay, so here I am. I'm at Richmond, and that's interesting because when I came back to it, it doesn't show me the same imagery that I saw a moment ago. But when I first came into it, it showed me how many neighbors were in Richmond. And yeah, now what it's doing is it's showing me different information each time. So if I keep refreshing this page, I have a feeling it'll come back to, hopefully eventually. There we go. So the first one that it shows me is how many neighbors, what percentage of how many households are part of, which is interesting, but it's not that interesting. And then if I click on this 12 nearby neighborhoods.
Oh, I see. I beg your pardon. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and a point that I want to point out now that I'm back to this spot is when I first logged into Nextdoor and I first learned about it, Richmond had 450 neighbors. And now in 10 years' time, it has really grown quite significantly. So that's an interesting thing. And other things have changed over the years too. Now there are groups, there's just a lot of change. For instance, if I come in and I look at my profile, excuse me, I can come down here. I've got a business page as well. So if you uh, want to have a business page, you can click on this, own a local business, create a page for your business. And then what happens is you get this opportunity to switch back and forth between your personal profile and your business profile, just like you do on Facebook. So for instance, I'll just show you, and when I say business, this can also be organization. So for instance, Sewell or your neighborhood association could have a business page. So right here is my page. Here are some things that I've posted. Here are some recommendations that I've made. Here are some things that I've posted. Here's some information about me and my business. And then here's some activity that I've done. So I was really excited that we had a farmer's market nearby. Unfortunately, that has ended for now, at least. And so I would use my business page actually mostly just to promote the the farmer's market. So that's what I did with it. And what's neat about having a business page is that you can post things to the business page. And when you do that, it tells you include a photo with your update. So first here I would give a title. So let's say my title is go team. I'm just going to make it real short. And then here I'm just going to say go team just to keep it really brief. I'm going to add a picture of some roses. And now, you can imagine obviously doing something more than this. But what's really great about this feature is that for free, I can go next. Okay, so my description is too short. I'm just going to make it longer. That. And now you can see this wonderful post. It's saying let's see. It's saying post. I'm a little nervous that, well, if I click on post, I believe, no, it used to be that when I would do that, I would get a choice to how far I wanted my post to go. And so that was pretty interesting. You can also advertise on Nextdoor. So you can increase your website visits, and these are just some different goals. But basically, these are ways that you can promote whatever it is you are interested in doing, and they will take as much money as you want to give them. So I have tried this before. I wouldn't say that it did much for me, but at the same time, it really depends on what you're doing. Again, if you, like I've talked about some of the other workshops that we've done, if you are promoting a bakery, let's say, or something, that's going to have a lot of appeal or that already has a lot of attention on it, there's a chance that through Nextdoor, your advertising could do well. So I'm deciding I'm not going to do an ad right now, but this is where you would go if you wanted to build an ad within your business page on Nextdoor. So most of the time on Nextdoor, here's notifications, by the way, your inbox, people can write to you. And then you can also, just like with Facebook, you can have a feed like you would on Facebook. The cool thing about Nextdoor, the really cool thing, is that it is organized locally. So when I do a post on Nextdoor, I have the opportunity to, this is a new feature actually, I can post to anyone, And that means that means I can post to um, people in Richmond, or I can post to people who are all over the Portland area. But what's interesting about this is here I can select that information. So let's say I wanted to do a post about, my desire to get rid of gas-powered leaf blowers. Here's a place where I might do that to everybody in Portland, and that way I could get, people in North Portland and people in South Portland. It's hilarious that there's this like animal uh, down here. Okay, I don't know. There's a way for me to not have this little video playing. Oh, maybe I can hide that. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Of course, the next one's a dog. Anyway, so I can, like I said, I can post this to anyone, or I can customize, or I can just do my neighborhood only, or I can post just to a group that I'm a part of. So I'm a part of a few different groups as well. What's good about this is that I told you the advantage of posting to anyone is that anyone in Portland might see the thing that I'm posting. But if I want to organize people who are just inside my area, like recently there was an issue. This is the advantage of Zoom. None of you have to get what I hope is not COVID. So there is an issue at the moment with the Parks Department has been building large piles of wood in Mount Tabor. And some of you may have heard about this, but if you haven't, they really did do this during the heat of summer. And some people were worried that, somebody might come along and set fire to these large piles of wood and thus, burn down Mount Tabor. And so they were concerned and they were asking me what I thought they should do. And some people took it out in their own hands and went to the piles and dismantled them. Parks Department finally did admit that they might have not thought this idea through, and I'm hoping that the piles are being dismantled by the Parks Department. And but in the meantime, if I wanted to organize people who live near me, these are the neighborhoods that are available to me. And just so you know, for better or worse, each of these neighborhoods is connected to people who are admins for the neighborhood. And it used to be that the admins played and they are people who live in that neighborhood. And I was one for a little while. And basically you just, anyone can flag a post in Nextdoor and say it's inappropriate or it's rude or inaccurate or whatever it is. And then the admins would see that and decide whether or not to keep the post up or the comment up or whatever it was. It ended up being a lot of work because, as Nextdoor grew, instead of having, 3 things to look at a day, you suddenly had 10 things to look at a day. One of the things that I noticed, and I just have to mention, is that the admins for Nextdoor, Foster Powell, for a while have been known to flag things and delete things. And because of that, I generally will not post to that neighborhood. And that has so far not landed any of my posts in Nextdoor jail. Because what happens is if your posts do end up going and being flagged, eventually Nextdoor will turn your account off for a while. And I didn't really like that. And so over time, I learned that actually just turning this one neighborhood off allowed me to fly unencumbered. So anyway, these are all the neighborhoods that are nearby. And you could also pick and choose. So for instance, if I was going to be promoting the Hawthorne Farmers Market, I might choose not to include Reed, or I might choose not to include Brooklyn, something like that. And so you can pick and choose depending on what you want. Most people I think at this point, are using, because this is the default now, unfortunately, people will post, lost cat. And that's going to anyone in Portland, where really what you want is just your own neighborhood if you've lost your cat. Down here, you get some options of things to do. There's a option to sell or give away things. You can add pictures. You can create a poll. You can post about safety, and it looks like that's it. So that's nice. I've used this for a number of times for buying and selling things. Not a lost cat, but you can choose where you want something, and you can also look for things via the sale and free area, which is nice. And you can even search and say, like I'm looking for a guitar. So there you go. You can see who's selling guitars, who's selling things like guitars. And I've actually found through this my air filters and my air conditioner unit, all of which have been hugely helpful in the last couple of years. Go ahead, Stephanie.
So in the regular posts, like the
Yeah.
one with the possum and the dog and so on that
Yeah.
are vertical, yeah. The if you post something, it quickly vanishes downward.
Right.
So is there any way to make it jump back up once in a while?
Yes. Good question. Great question. So there's a couple of things. So in your profile, if you click on View Profile, it's actually a great question. If I scroll down, I can see all the different organizations that I have written about. So here's something that I posted 7 hours ago. All right. Now here's something that I posted on the 20th of August. And, a few different people have commented on it. And I added a comment. When I added this comment 2 days ago, that did a couple of things. That then pops this conversation back up into the top of the newsfeed. But there's so much activity on Nextdoor that the chance that somebody is going to necessarily see it again or even see it for the first time are slim. But that is something that you can do, is post back to the same topic that you've had before. You can also bookmark the posting. So right here, I'm going to click on bookmark, and that bookmarks it for me to go back to at another time if I want to. And that is a strategy that I have used over time to basically move a issue forward. So for instance, as I've mentioned already, I'm a big fan of getting rid of lawns and getting rid of gas-powered lawn maintenance. So you could see I've done exactly that. I've come in here and this was originally posted on the 11th, and now I've tagged it again on the 16th. But I will go back and look at, let's see, I will go back and look at things that I have. That's not really what I'm looking for. I will look for my bookmarks, and I will go back to things that I bookmarked from 2016 and 17 and re-up them, because for whatever reason, many of these topics haven't really changed. So that is something that you can do. And what happens also is, let's say I'm looking for one where a number of people have commented on it. Oh, here we go. So this one has 47 comments on it. So if I said something right now, and I have a feeling I'm probably the most recent I'm not the most recent comment. So this person was on August 7th. But if I write something and comment here, all the people who commented before me, all 47 people get a notification, which is these right over here, that um, that I have that a comment has been made. So here are some notifications, for instance, people reacting, and here's one where Natasha commented on something that I've commented on, and it has to do with Fred Meyer on Hawthorne not being a great neighbor, and a lot of us would like to see, for instance, this little piece of lattice work on the side of the building is supposed to be for a living wall, and they have these all over the building, and they've never done anything about it, and they have a few other problems. So that's just something that's a little bit about how this works, how Nextdoor works. So anybody have any questions about Nextdoor? It's kind of a quick run through, but that is a bit of how Nextdoor works. And what's great about it, again, I'll just reiterate, is that it is organized by neighborhood. And so there's really very few tools like this. I will actually share with you. I've done some writing about Nextdoor and sort of strategies about Nextdoor. Let's see, why don't I just pull up a couple of these. And Tina, I'll be with you in just a second. So I wrote an article, albertideation.com/Nextdoor, which was like, yeah, there we go, 2015. This is kind of when I came to Jesus, and I was like, oh my God, this thing exists. How fantastic. So I started writing about it. And then then I wrote an article in 2018 about how to use it to affect neighborhood change. And I wrote a couple of different ideas here. One is being the person who starts the conversation. That really helps because you can manage both the conversation. If you need to edit what you wrote in the beginning, you can. You can really do a great job of phrasing the outcome that you want and providing people with clear action steps. So, for instance, right now I'm interested in the city charter issue, and so I will probably be doing a couple of articles, not articles, but posts about the issue and who's backing it and who's not. And by being the person who starts the conversation, I get to be in charge of the conversation generally and responding to people rather than being kind of in the middle somewhere. So that's useful. My second point here is, obviously you're going to have a lot of people who disagree with you, go off topic, want to talk about dogs, whatever it is. And it doesn't really matter. You just have, because this is the funniest thing about these social media platforms too, and that people don't really get, is that if someone opposes what you're saying, it still continues to drive the topic to the top of people's newsfeed. So if someone disagrees with me 180 degrees, they just really disagree with me, or even if they just say something irrelevant, they're still building more attention for the issue itself. And that really, most people are just going to read the original comment, and then they'll decide whether or not they want to dive into the fray or not. So that's just something to be familiar with, and also to kind of get used to in terms of social media. You're always going to find people who disagree with you. You're going to find people who say things that are unclear. And part of the strategy around that is always use lots of words. Go way beyond what you think you need to do to explain something or to answer something. And if you need to provide resources and a link to something, great, do that too. So yeah, and you just have to get used to that. And I feel like social media is also still a place where you can the word that I wanted to say was just teach people. And, you know, it sounds condescending, but I think it is actually true that it's a place where you can kind of give people a hand. You can give them a hand with unclear thinking. You can give them a hand with unclear communication. You can give them a hand with just like understanding what the actual issues are that you're dealing with. So that was the second point that I made there. And then I talk a little bit about how Nextdoor is different than other social media platforms, particularly because um, it is based on your location. I'm sorry, I have been ignoring the people who are raising their hands. So one of you go ahead and jump in, please.
Well, so I guess, and I think as I've been listening to you, I may have answered it a little bit. So I don't typically post things on Nextdoor. I
Huh?
never have, except like meeting stuff. But sometimes the neighborhood association gets brought up in conversations,
Right.
and
Yep.
and so the also the thing is all some of the toxic things that happen on Nextdoor.
Hmm.
And I was going to say, how do you avoid that? You seem very zen, though, so you may just not be quite as reactionary as I am when someone says something, and it's just like, what do they expect me to do? So
Yeah.
I guess how do you do that? Like
Well, that kind of goes
manage
back
that?
to, you know, number two, where something is broken on the internet. You know, somebody, uh, you're gonna, we live in a city, you know, people have different opinions of things and people have different levels of, um, well, different communication styles for sure, but also different understandings of like what's kosher. You know, what, you know, I remember somebody used to explain it to me about, you know, how to teach people not to fart in church. Well, you know, what do you do with someone's being racist, or what do you do if they're being sexist or misogynist? You know, some things you can do are you can always write to somebody who is doing something. Like if I see Brian's, you know, doing something I'm not happy with, I can click on his name and I can send him a message and say, hey, you know, about your post such and such, you know, I really suggest you do something a little different with that. Um, but, and, you know, you also get to pick your battles. Like none of us can be, you know, unless you've decided to be the mayor, um, none of us have to be involved in every issue that comes up, you know, so
I mean, literally, I just avoid Nextdoor now. I
right.
don't I
And
don't
that's
use it, and that's
right.
sad.
And it's unfortunate because
Yeah.
there is, you know, there's a lot of good there. It's a very powerful tool for also just simple things like I need a plumber. You know, anytime anyone on Facebook is saying like, who can recommend a plumber? I'm like, get on Nextdoor, because here I'm looking at, you know, here these are ads. We talked about ads a moment ago, but if I scroll down a little bit, I'm going to get to some conversations. So here's Zach on August 9th, you know, asking for a plumber. And if I click on that, I'm going to see 5 different people jumped in and have, you know, a great recommendation of this Bo Vincelli plumbing, right? So this is a brilliant, brilliant use of it. It's also good for all sorts of things. I mean, you can ask for help just like you can with like a being neighborly group on Facebook. Um, that is, I'll just switch to that just for a second so you can see, has a little bit of a different feeling to it. And this is one of the being neighborly groups in my neighborhood, Richmond. This is pretty interesting, actually. 486 members. When I joined this, probably 2 years ago, I think there were 150 people. So this has obviously jumped. And here we've got, you know, somebody. I usually try to look at this as by new posts. You know, somebody's asking about a preschool. I'm talking about my favorite issue, leaf blowers. And same thing with a group like this. I can, when I comment on it, it's going to pop back up to the top. So that's another thing I can do is I can bookmark things that I want to hold on to. And then that's right here. I click on save posts. I put it somewhere and then I can come back to it and revive it if I want to another time. So, but yeah, it's, you know, we obviously don't have all the time in the world, and you have to be um, strategic about where you're going to put your time and what you're going to do when you are engaged in some of these platforms. But what I will say is that sadly, I know that people have pulled away from Nextdoor because they're, whether it's just being overwhelmed by the amount of car break-ins, or talk about houselessness, or whatever issue of the day is happening. And it's a lot of that. There's ways around that. You can either do things like you can search on particular things, like I just did a moment ago, um, or you can be leading by posting the information that you want to, the issue that you are trying to get across. So if you're trying to promote a street fair, or if you're trying to promote a neighborhood association meeting, or a street cleanup, or graffiti removal, or the other 20 different things that many of us know about, if not are involved in, this is a great place to do it. And my hope is, that just went through my heart a little bit, is that by taking the lead and by leading and using this tool this way, we can partly change the dynamic of Nextdoor, at least for our region. Not every Nextdoor is like Portland's. Different places have very different vibrations. And I think it's partly through people actually taking a chance and kind of promoting their own agenda or activities, or whatever it is. There's a lot of really funny things that happen on here. There's people who, I just arrived in Portland. There was one actually the other day that was called "Thank You Portland," and what it was this guy had arrived in Portland, and yeah, here it is, Dear Portland. This guy came to Portland, and he had his tools stolen, like the first day he was here or something, or the second day. Anyway, then he tells this really beautiful story about all these people who came to his aid and gave him tools and welcomed him and stuff. At 136 comments, and all these people like sort of following up and being like, "Yep, that's the Portland I know." People helping when help is needed. So obviously that's not everybody's experience, but this kind of post, really can change the vibe. This is a friend of mine. All right, so anyway, that's a little bit about that. Trying to think what else about Nextdoor. Does anybody have any questions before I leave Yield Nextdoor? Or maybe we'll come back to it.
I have one question.
Go ahead. Great, Seven.
Okay, so I tried posting land use notices on Nextdoor, and this was probably 18 months ago, or last 2 years. If I mentioned the Brentwood Darlington Neighborhood Association, Nextdoor would insert a big visually intrusive identifier or information about the Brentwood Darlington Neighborhood Association, which I didn't want, but then the only way to get rid of it was to delete the post and then write a post that didn't mention it. But since the land use is a committee of the neighborhood, it's very difficult to figure out how not to mention the neighborhood in order to avert this posting. So do you have what should I have done? Maybe I should have made up a name like Brent Dar Association or something.
Here's I'm just looking, I just did a little search, and I see that this person mentioned Brentwood, Woodstock area, and so there's nothing unusual there.
There's no trigger there.
Yeah, so maybe instead of calling it Brentwood Darling, you just call it Brentwood. You'll have to experiment. I mean, you might also just try something like misspelling it.
Okay.
Um, I'm not sure, and I don't know. Um, there it's a program, and it's a like Facebook. It doesn't really have great support. So when you fall, I mean, a thing you could try is asking your admin people. I'm not really, to be honest, sure how to even reach them these days. There used to be a really obvious way to do it.
Uh-huh.
Well, actually, let's see if I click on help. Um, uh, yeah,
Well, I'll just experiment if I ever do any more posting, but I was just wondering if there's some way to
yeah.
avert that. Okay.
I'm wondering if maybe it's right here, Teams. Oh yeah, yeah. So
What
here under Teams is, how to become a lead. Um,
what is a lead?
a lead is somebody who is basically a moderator for your neighborhood,
Okay.
and so that could be a way to try to figure out, how to a workaround around what you're doing. But I
Okay.
think maybe just not calling it by the name that Nextdoor calls it would do the trick. You know,
Yeah. Okay.
obviously, um, Nextdoor knows that it's Brentwood Darlington, so if you
Mm,
just shorten it, I have a feeling that might be work.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments about ye old Nextdoor? Oh, we're already at 6:40. Wow. Okay, well, I think I will hop along. As I mentioned, I do have a couple of these articles that um, you could see the URL for them if you want them. I'm just going to quickly go through the last 2 points on this because I think they're valuable. Um, making sure that your post just shines grammatically and spelling wise. I think that's an easy way to trip people up when you make mistakes. They often will gravitate towards those. And avoiding sarcasm and wittiness. I know that's sad. You kind of wish that everybody would get your sarcasm or get your snark, but it really doesn't travel well on social media. Um, and then as I mentioned before, reminding people about whatever issue you're working on over and over again. And so that has led to a couple other Nextdoor articles, and then I also, have a third one as well. I just can't stop. This third one is really kind of fun, actually, for anybody who's looking to increase their social um, life and your community. And basically, it's how to use Nextdoor to, to increase the number of people in your life and how to sort of reach out to people who you connect with on Nextdoor, build an email list, and possibly have something by the end of it. And I did this right before the pandemic started, and I invited everybody from the list to go out to meals, and kind of got something started with that. And mostly that has led to uh, mostly just having some of those people on email lists that announce when I'm having a house concert or when I'm having a voting party. I usually throw voting parties once we all have our ballots. Now they're on Zoom, or at least for now they're on Zoom. I'm going to go on to just real quickly back to the Being Neighborly group. This is a place where, at least for Richmond, we've got 3 of these, and one of them is this one. Another one is Being Neighborly with an equity-centered focus that has a smaller number of people. And then the largest one is this one, Being Neighborly Southeast Hawthorne, which has 1.3, 1,300 people. And that has quite a lot of people in it. And that covers, they say that's all of these neighborhoods. So, I wouldn't say it's super active, but it is it is a place like Nextdoor where people are, offering all sorts of things. And you probably all know about things like Buy Nothing. That's kind of a cool thing to know about. It's not really what we're talking about tonight, but that's another tool on Facebook that I find very useful. I'm about to go get a terrarium that I found on there today. I wanted to share with you just, some things to know about for whether it's business or, that's interesting. Whether it's a business or it is your organization. Could be on a place like Yelp. This is a place where you can gather reviews. I have 37 reviews for my business. And that also tells people, okay, this is a legit business. It's a real person. He really exists. Oh, I see. These are reviews that I have created, but I actually have one of these on here for my business as well. And this is also a place where you can, create an account for your neighborhood association or for any organization or really anything. And then it becomes, if I look up my business, if actually I'm gonna have to go out to Google because I don't use Google as my main search engine. But if I do, you'll see, and I search on my business, the first thing that comes up is my business on Google. And that's another place where you can go and do a creation of whatever organization you are in. So this tells you all sorts of stuff about my business, where my website is, how to get there, the reviews that I've received on here, the hours that I have. I'm closed right now. My phone number, how to make an appointment with me, et cetera, et cetera. And then here are the different reviews that I have. But if I just look down here through the results, I can notice that one of the, on the first page is the one on Yelp. And so, that's not for everybody. Again, we all have limited amounts of time. And so how much time you're going to spend creating profiles on social media is really up to you. But it is worthwhile doing it, especially if you are a business, because if you don't claim your business, something like this can happen to you. This is a local sandwich place around the corner from me. It's not that. There we go. And you can see, because they have not claimed their business, it says unclaimed, which makes it look like maybe they exist, maybe they don't. And then it also, they are unable to change their hours. And these hours are not correct. I am absolutely positive these hours are not correct. And so they have run into all sorts of problems. Why they haven't actually claimed their business, I don't know, but I just wanted to show you an example of what happens when you leave it up to Yelp to create your business for you. So, oh my God, actually, I kind of want to take a picture of this and show that business owner and let him know that he should be open at 7 o'clock in the morning. Oh my God. But he's not even open. I think they're only open a couple days a week. But by the way, I do want to mention, since we're here, DeMarco's is just incredible sandwiches. So that's a place for reviews. And that's a place that people will go when they're looking about whatever it is that you do. They could end up at Yelp. They could end up at Google My Business. And then there are a couple other sort of odds and ends places that you might end up landing on, but those are pretty much the main ones. What was the other thing that I wanted to talk about tonight? Any questions coming to mind or thoughts? Why don't I stop screen sharing for a second? Just look at you all. Hi, everybody. How are you doing, Betsy? Is some of this useful to you?
Pretty much.
I can't hear you. I know you're unmuted, but Still, there is no sound.
1 second, go on. I need to change my,
Go ahead.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a setting that no matter how often I change it on Zoom, it goes back to, it's not the mute, it's a different one. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I've had similar experience to, I don't know if it was Tina or Stephanie about Nextdoor in terms of just too much sort of NIMBY kind of uncomfortable stuff. So
Right.
I have tended to avoid it.
Mhm.
But it's interesting to think about it in terms of neighborhood organizing, because I tend to do things that are more sort of nonprofits and activist things that are for the city, and don't think as much for local, other than my buy nothing group,
Right.
which has been helpful in certain ways. So
Good.
just rethinking when these are useful, I think is helpful in itself.
You just reminded me of the thing that I still want to share with everybody. So thanks for that. So, so we talked about the being neighborly groups, but what I didn't really talk about yet is actual Facebook groups. And on Nextdoor, there are groups. I would say they're still very immature, and they're great if you're a dog lover. But here is an example of a Facebook group. Facebook groups are different than Facebook pages. You have, you're looking at this now from the admin side. I'm an admin of this group. There's 259 members. Actually, I think I'm gonna switch groups just because to give this a break. Everybody knows I can't stand leaf blowers, but did you know I also love to keep trees standing? Anyway, this is the We Keep Trees Standing in Portland group. And I started this a couple of years ago, and this is a group that has to do with keeping trees standing. And part of it is giving people information about what they can do if they see trees that are threatened. So that's all this background information that is in the about section. And I use this all the time. I just grab this little section and I'll put it in posts all the time, not just in this group, but in other groups. But what's great about groups is that, the people who are in this group came here to do this particular thing. And you can find all sorts of groups in Portland, and they are, I think, the most effective use of social media, particularly Facebook, that exists. They generally are not location-based. Some are, like the Being Neighborly groups, but these are often just issue groups. And so here, I've got the ability to, I can feature some particular posts. I can create events. I can look at who's in the group, and I can, reach out to people. I can be reminded, when people joined. I can welcome people. I can do all sorts of things. And then I have the really, I think, key thing is things like events where I can say, all right, next Thursday, I want people to show up and come and testify at this particular Urban Forestry Commission hearing. And just like with Nextdoor, I can do that. And then all the people who are coming to the event, even though it's not exactly an event, are going to see this. And I can just do all sorts of things with events as well within Facebook, but that's not as powerful, I wouldn't say, as just the actual group itself. Because within the group, there's discussions that are started. So for instance, this was the one that I talked about a little while ago, where this woman went and found these piles of logs inside of the park. And, you know, that had a reach of 72 people, 22 different people commented on it. It raised a lot of lot of commentary. And, you know, some new relationships are being built.
Mhm.
K2 ended up doing a story on it. More and more people commented on it. And this group I also use for alerting people to good stuff that's happening. So, for instance, in Medellin, Colombia, there's a really neat effort to plant a lot of trees and cool the neighborhoods. You know, I'm also really concerned about the end of the Friends of Trees partnership. And so this is one post that I did recently. So this one's kind of like a little bit of a pet project of mine, but you know, it's managed to attract 700 people. So or 670 people. So you know, it's something to do, and I think it's actually ended up um, helping people to find a place to get direction and take action. I don't know if you've guessed by now, but I'm a big fan of giving people action steps, and it's usually the same thing. You know, contact city council, show up at a hearing, write a letter to the editor, the typical things. But sometimes it's not typical. Sometimes it's actually go to this particular tree that's right here, this magnolia tree, and put ribbons on it and hang up a sign and this kind of thing. Fortunately, we lost this tree. Um, and then within this group, things you can do to to sort of moderate the group is you can have it, you can have people have to answer questions, for instance. So when someone joins this group, they read through this, they answer it, and that's it. And then they can just say yes or no, and on they go. And this is also helping me build an email newsletter that I send out from time to time. And as I mentioned in both the first and second hearing classes that we did, you know, building an email newsletter for all of these things is a great way to go, because if I then use the newsletter for this group and I send out to 200 people, hey, we're all testifying tomorrow in front of this committee, and here's the link, I'm going to get another 10 people who will show up. And sometimes, I mean, always, that's a lot of people. You know, even if one other person comes, it keeps me company. But usually, for instance, the first time I did this recently was hearing, I think it was last month, and I had 5 people come and testify. And I think the Urban Forestry Commission was not used to having 5 people come and give public testimony. And I think at this next one, I'm gonna at least have 5. So anyway, that's just a little bit about how to organize a group on Facebook and what the value of that is. So, you know, this is something that like maybe Sewell could consider if they don't already have one. Any neighborhood association could have one of these. It could really drive engagement and I think participation up in a way that is not really being utilized. Like my neighborhood does not have this. They don't even have a Facebook page. But I will show you a Facebook page that I think is doing a really great job of using this tool, the page part of things, which is the Sunnyside Neighborhood Association. And yeah, they've got a nice picture there. You know, they say, here's where we are. They share their website. Here's how to reach them. You can send them a message through this, through the app. And then here they are just saying, you know, they're recommending a local business. And here they are recommending a local business. And, you know, here they are recommending something else. And I see their stuff on my feed all the time because they're posting a lot. Whoever's doing it is doing a really good job. So, you know, that's something that I think every neighborhood association probably should have. So, and if you want to see what a neighborhood association or any organization is doing, you can, let's see, where is it located? There should be a place where I could say see first. Maybe it's here, maybe it's there. Oh, follow settings. So here I could say, see posts in their usual order from this page. But if I click on favorites, I'm going to see more of their posts more frequently. And they are the ones in the neighborhood who are doing this type of thing. And since I'm on Facebook a lot, I think I will do that. All right. Anybody have any questions about Facebook pages or groups?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the Brentwood Darlington Neighborhood Association has a Facebook account. And we allowed someone to set up a group with the very same name. She wanted to collect opinions and ideas for action and so on, but no one ever posted to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's closed now, but it's still mentioned, and it really interferes with getting to the real neighborhood page. And I wanted to know if there's a way to kill it visually, get rid of
Yeah,
it.
that's a good question. Let's see. I will.
Now watch me be proved wrong. Maybe it's gone now, but last time I looked, it was.
Well, we can't, you and I can't kill it, but I was thinking maybe I could at least look and see if there is a group
Well,
that I've created because I think you're right. I think that once they're created, they last forever, and I think they do get in the way. So here are
So naming your group is really, if you create a group associated with your neighborhood association, you have to name it carefully.
right.
Mhm.
Right. So let's see here.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for a group that, here's one. So I created this group. So I paused this group, but can I actually delete it? If I leave the group, let's see here. No, see, it doesn't allow you to kill it, I don't think. Unarchive group, I don't think that's what we want to do. But if I leave the group and I'm the only person there, yeah, that deletes it.
Oh, let me see if we can do that. Okay.
Yeah. So now if I,
But you're the administrator, right?
yeah.
And I'm not, but maybe I can find one.
Yeah, so it would probably mean, it would potentially mean everybody in the group leaving, or the admin of the group kicking everybody else out and then leaving themselves.
Okay.
So I know that's a lot of effort, but that's probably, it's a one-time piece of effort, and it might not be that much effort.
Well, okay.
And
So the person who's probably the administrator, this is a total mess,
yeah,
is gone.
yeah, and another thing that they can do, well, one thing is they can make you an admin, and then you could take care of it. Another thing would be they could rename it and just call it Bob, and that way it wouldn't, mess up your.
Oh, it's possible to rename. Okay.
Yeah, that might be the simplest thing. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you all here. I think I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording, and maybe we'll have a couple more questions, but I'm going to say goodbye to those who've been watching, and thanks for watching.